Big man Bakar, welcome back. We're going into game week 3. You had an okay game week 2 at 69 points. We're going to have a look at your plans for next week, and we're going to answer 5 burning questions ahead of the next game week. How was your week? Were you happy with the outcome?
I mean, it was solid enough. Thanks for having me. I'll take it in the first place. I mean, so far the way I look at it, it's been a story of in Haaland. In game week 1 it was Haaland, and game week 2 it's Gabriel Jesus. So if you own either of them, you've had a great week. If you don't own either of them, you've been royally screwed. So it's been a solid enough start for me. It's nothing spectacular, but at least I'm staying on par with the rest of the pack, which is nice. I mean, it would have been nice to get a few 50-50 decisions right. But I mean, these are things that happen, and at least as long as the margin of the deficit between me and some of the other elite managers isn't that big, I'm very happy to start the season in this solid fashion.
Yeah, so your rank at time of recording is 629k. I am sitting not far behind you, I suppose, on 861k, just a few points in it at this early stage in the season. It's negligible, really. But we're going to answer 5 big questions. There was a lot that happened, and the first one is Darwin Núñez. He got the red card, suspended for a few games. A lot of people transferred him in last week. You know, he's been up and down. You know, people hated him in his first appearance in the friendlies for Liverpool. Then he got the hat-trick and everyone loved him. And then he did this and he did that and he got the goal and he looks amazing. And now he's got a red card and so it's just people flip-flopping, burning transfers everywhere. Who do you replace him with? Or what's your play?
If you have Jesus in your squad, then in that case, I'd probably look at Tony. If you don't have Jesus, then my number one priority would be Jesus, because I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's far too risky to go without him. I believe even this week he had 7 shots inside the box, 4 big chance involvements. He was top for XG, big chances, shots inside the box in the league among all players. So with his ownership and the fact that he's playing 2 back-to-back promoted sides the next 2 fixtures, I just think it's way too risky to go without. If you own him, like a lot of people do, then in that case, I would look at Tony. I prefer Tony to someone like a Mitrovic, because when I look at Fulham's fixtures, Fulham have Spurs, Arsenal, and Chelsea in 3 of their next 5 fixtures, which isn't ideal. And we're sort of getting to that stage, John, where the midweek fixtures are soon going to kick in after game week 4. So we ideally want a player who's nailed to start every fixture, who's the 90 minutes guy. And that's why I really like Tony. He's kind of flown under the radar, gone under the radar, just because of the fact that he's 7 million. If he was 6.5, he would have got more attention. But I mean, Brentford look a team on the rise. They've signed Damsgaard. There are plenty of creative players behind Tony, and that theory that Brentford could struggle in the absence of Eriksen, I think that's been put to rest with their performances so far. And their fixtures coming up are, I mean, absolutely brilliant. They don't face any of the top 4 sides till game week 12. Even 2 of the top 6 sides they face in this spell, Arsenal and Spurs and Chelsea, are at home. So, I mean, their fixtures are great as well. I just don't see any reason why not to go for Tony. It's just a bit of an obvious pick if you don't have him from Darwin.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people are looking at that relatively early wildcard around game week 8 or 9. And if you have Tony up until then, you're looking at Fulham, Everton, Palace, Leeds, Southampton. You have Arsenal in game week 8, which could be tough. Lots of goals, you'd imagine. Then Bournemouth, Newcastle, Brighton. So, like you do, as you say, you have plenty of leeway here. He's a guy you can kind of set and forget about, at least in the short term, with how great they've been going forward. And he's less than 10% ownership right now compared to Jesus, who a lot of people will have because he's owned by 76% of players. So I suppose they're the main places we'd look. Watkins has 12 points on the board. He had an 11-pointer this week. He has a bit of a nightmare fixture run from 5 to 7. And I mean, outside that, maybe you are looking at the likes of a Mitrovic or a...
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a differential pick, if you don't want to go for Tony, if you're looking for a differential, there are 2 other players I'd just like to highlight here. But I mean, they're not obvious picks because obviously there's something not right with them. The first one is Welbeck, who's very injury prone, but now with Mope rumored to leave, I believe he's done enough to start. He's actually played 90 minutes in both of the opening fixtures, and he's had 8 goal involvements in the previous 7 fixtures. And Brighton have a very good run of fixtures. So, I mean, I'm not averse to picking Welbeck. Actually, at this point, I would rather have Welbeck than Mitrovic, looking at Fulham's fixtures. And then there's Havertz. I mean, Havertz isn't in the best of forms. He's missing chances for fun. But if you want to punt, then Chelsea's fixtures are absolutely incredible in the next five, actually. Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, West Ham, Fulham. It doesn't really get better than that. So if you're looking for a bit of a punt, then I think Havertz isn't a bad choice.
3.8% ownership. We'll move on to our second question of the week, and it's keep Robertson or sell to get Diaz in. You know, Robertson came off just after the 60th minute. Unfortunately, that didn't lock in any sort of clean sheet for me with my double Liverpool defence or any other Liverpool defender holders, who I imagine most of us have at least one. So he got subbed off, and Luis Diaz scored an absolute worldly, like a top goal. If anyone didn't see it, go and see it. It's brilliant. And the debate sort of going into the season was very much around Diaz or Robertson, because Salah and Trent were locked in our team, so it was one of the other two. And a lot of people are looking to sell Robertson, downgrade, take a bit of cash, and maybe go from the likes of their Grealishes or other 8 million midfielders or wherever they're finding cash to bring Diaz in. Even something I sent to you that I was seriously debating last night, and you kind of talked me down. You talked me off the ledge. I was kind of going, I want KDB. His price is going to rise. I'm going to go Salah to KDB and Grealish to Luis Diaz. And you called me a madman. So just talk to me about all of that.
I mean, it was literally the worst case scenario that could have happened as a Robertson owner. I mean, Diaz scoring after that, and he was actually playing wide when Liverpool had 11 men, because Nunes was playing central. But when he got sent off, Diaz was sort of a second striker with Salah, and he got into more promising positions. So it wasn't ideal. Having said that, I don't think using two transfers to sell Robertson and buy Diaz is worth the swap. I say that because one or two poor performances from the Liverpool defense doesn't really mean that Robertson becomes a poor option overnight. I still think he's a very, very solid option to have. He's proven himself to be a reliable FPL asset over the years, and that doesn't change with just a couple of performances. I think we should be patient. And I'll ask you this, John. When you look at Liverpool's fixtures, Man United, Bournemouth at home, Newcastle at home, Everton and Wolves at home. Now these are the fixtures in the next 5. How many clean sheets do you see for Liverpool? I personally think at least 3.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 of 5, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is, Bakar, we would have had them in for 2 clean sheets in the opening 2. Crystal Palace at home, Fulham. I mean, we would have had them penciled in for 2. So by
That's
this
right.
logic,
but I mean, what's gone is gone,
5.
Right? What's gone is gone. I mean, I still don't buy the fact that they're going to become a bad defense overnight. I mean, Gomez is expected to be fine for the weekend. Him coming back will surely improve the defense. Matip should be fine in a couple of weeks as well. So I would say that back then, when you look at the clean sheet odds as well, I mean, in 3 of the 5 fixtures, they have over 50% chances of a clean sheet. So it's just that I think it's a bit of a sideways move. I mean, on any other day, you'd see Robertson do well and Diaz not do as well. So it was just an unfortunate outcome that happened to transpire on the day. And it's not something which I expect to happen with regularity in every single week with the way things are.
So just tagging in on that, because we are talking about Liverpool movement, the Salah to KDB switch, right? And I know it's maybe not on everyone's mind, but I was very bullish at KDB getting into the season. And I just didn't have the balls, to be honest with you, to stray from the pack and go for him. I wanted to with every bone in my body, and I still want to with everything in me. But it's so hard because Salah is Salah. Is switching and saving that, I think it's probably 0.9 now. Is it something you'd even remotely consider, given City's fixtures, Liverpool's form, the injuries up top for Liverpool, the suspension?
No, I personally wouldn't do it because, the counter arguments we were seeing to Salah early on were that Nunes has come in, he's going to be more central. Salah will be playing wider, he won't be getting into as many goal scoring positions. But now Nunes is out, and Salah is going to be, if there was ever any doubt, he's going to be the main talisman against Manchester United, Bournemouth, and Newcastle. And I think he can run absolutely right. I think he's going to be the captaincy option in at least 2 of the next 3 game weeks, if not all of them. So I would not even remotely consider selling Salah.
Okay, well, there's that one shot down. I'll keep my Salah. Someone that we all ended up with, maybe against, no, I wouldn't say against our better judgment. It was definitely a good call going into the season based on pre-season form. And to be honest with you, at time of recording, only 14% of people own him. But 14% of us have been stuck with Leon Bailey. He got 90 minutes the first week for 2 points. He got 12 minutes last game week just for 1 point. And that sort of sent up the alarm bells. Palace and West Ham in the next two, and then Arsenal, City, Leicester. Not easy fixtures, not guaranteed minutes. He is only 5 million, but because a lot of us have went so big at the back, he was a planned starter for a lot of us. What do you do if you've Bailey? Do you keep him? Do you twist?
A lot of FPL managers, including myself, have been hit with the harsh reality that Bailey is no longer first choice anymore after the weekend. What's worse was that, Gerrard opted for two strikers and both of them combined for the first goal, Watkins and Ings. So, I mean, that goal pretty much sealed Bailey's fate. I don't see him coming back in the starting lineup. And I think FPL managers need to have a bit of an escape route when it comes to Bailey. Now, there are two options. Either to someone like a Pascal Gross, who I really like. I just spoke about Brighton's fixtures. And Gross is playing behind the striker. And, his numbers are very good. He's actually second in midfielders for XG. And actually joint top with Jesus for shots in the 6-yard box. So I really like Gross. If you can afford to go to Pascal Gross, then that's something I would do. Having said that, I mean, a lot of people don't exactly have the luxury of having cash in the bank. So in that case, what you can do is you can change structure. You can downgrade him to a 4.5 and upgrade your fifth defender. So you can basically go for a 5 at the back formation in that scenario. That's personally what I'll be doing with my team as well, and I'll just speak about it when we come to my team reveal. But I just think there's a lot of value in the fifth defender, and at 5 million, there's not much you get at that price. I mean, there's De Silva, but he scored twice from a minimal, negligible XG, which is unsustainable, and it's not going to happen time and again. I don't even think he's secure for a start week in, week out with Damsgaard coming in and Brentford having so many midfielders. I just think you can downgrade him to a 4.5 and use the cash to upgrade your fifth midfield defender.
Yeah, he's one of those where it's almost, I'm almost resisting or hesitant or begrudging the fact that I have to use one of my beautiful free transfers on switching out a 5 million player. But ultimately, at this rate, he's going to drop in value very soon. And yeah, you kind of want to get out of that sinking ship. Now, saying that, Bakar, FPL, he's probably going to go and score a couple of goals next week because that's how this game works. But yeah, I'll be looking to escape. The next point we have to talk about is the best Kieran Trippier replacements.
Now, this is a bit of a tricky one because Trippier has done really, really well in the first 2 weeks. If you can afford to bench him, I would bench him, but I don't think a lot of FPL managers have that luxury where they can afford to bench him for a better playable option. And especially when you look at the next few fixtures for Newcastle, they have Man City and Liverpool in 2 of their next 3. Now, that is an ideal. And when there are so many defenders who I like, and I can see them scoring big in the times to come, I would sell Trippier, which is a bit of a controversial opinion given the fact that, Newcastle's fixtures after game week 5, they improve big time. However, the next 3 game weeks don't look great, which is what I would look at immediately in the short run. And when you look at similar options in that price bracket, I'm speaking specifically of Cucurella and Perisic over here, because Perisic put in a good performance in his cameo as well, and he's in every single Spurs predicted lineup I see. So I would either go to Cucurella or I would either go to Perisic, depending on the Spurs team news. Cucurella, Tuchel was very complimentary of his performances. He in fact said that Chilwell isn't fit enough at this point in time and he only wants to use him as a substitute. So that pretty much guarantees Cucurella to start every week. And there's also the fact that Cucurella does have the flexibility to play as a left centre-back as well in case Chilwell comes in. And as far as Perisic is concerned, I think he's a very high upside differential to own. I mean, he's on another level when it comes to upside. So if he is starting, because Spurs are playing in the first game before before game week 3 kicks off, so I think there's a very good chance that we get Spurs team news for the lineup before the deadline. And if we get the lineup and Perisic is starting, I think he could be a very crazy upside differential to pick.
You call him a differential. He's 17.8% owned. He was shipped out by over 350,000 managers last week.
I would probably. I would debate. I would debate that a lot of those 17.8 managers have auto pick teams, because I mean he was in
Yeah.
every auto pick team I saw at the start of the season, and not a lot of invested managers and a lot of active managers don't exactly own him. I mean I do, but
Hmm.
I think I'm in the minority. A lot of people don't own him, and a lot of people
Hmm.
sort of sold him once they heard the pre-match press conference before game week 1. So I mean, I still think he's a differential, at least in the serious category of players.
No, that's probably fair. So another question I'll ask you, and then we'll move on to look at what you're going to do with your team this week. You've got those 2 free transfers, so you'll be licking your lips. Is it worth looking at an early wild card? You know, everyone's talking about an early wild card being viable this year. If you were to pop it this week, you'd be able, like, particularly imagine you'd brought in the likes of Darwin and you had a Trippier in there and a few of these, you have a Bailey in there, and basically based on a few of the things we've been talking about, there's multiple changes you would ideally like to make. Is the wild card an option now, or do you think patience until game week 6, 7, 8 at the earliest is kind of the move?
I mean, I feel as if most of these talks about an early wild card are premature. Obviously, this is team dependent, and if your team really needs it, and if you don't own the obvious picks like someone like a Jesus or Salah or Haaland, Martinelli, Cancelo, you can, in that case, you can afford to wildcard. But but in case you do, which I assume a lot of teams do, then I believe they have a solid core. And when you own a solid core, and when you own the obvious picks who are performing well, I don't see a reason to wildcard, because any fires in the team, for example, we were just speaking about Bailey. I mean, you can sell him, and such issues can be sorted with a hit or two. At this point, I just don't think that your wildcard team would look much different from your original squad that you can have with the cost of 1 or 2 hits. So that just makes me feel as if there's little value addition in wildcarding right now, because the template is very strong, and I just think we need some more information to go differently. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love an early wildcard, but I just don't think there are enough opportunities available right now. For example, when you look at the Chelsea wingbacks or the Spurs wingbacks, I mean, these are certain pieces of information you would like more clarity on when you wildcard, and I just don't think we have that at the moment.
I'll put it to you like this, Bakar. As you say there, 1 or 2 hits could solve it. If I was in a position where I can take 2 hits and a -8 to get to where I want to get to, do I take the -8 or do I take the wild card?
I would take the -8.
Well, there we go. Because I'd say a lot of people are in that boat. -12's taking the piss a bit. You're probably wild carding then.
Yeah, in that case, I would wildcard. Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose that's, if you're in a position where you feel you absolutely need to make the transfers for your team, they need to be done. -8, just do it. -12, pop the wild card. This video is brought to you by Spitch. Spitch is a daily fantasy site where you can play single game week game modes or season long game modes for free or paid. The scoring matrix is much more complex than FPL, with points awarded for things like passes, tackles, blocks, shots, and you can pick players from different leagues, including the Bundesliga, the Premier League, and the Champions League. In the season long mode, which is more like FPL, there's a 2.5k prize pool up for grabs in the free to play mode and a 50k prize pool for the $5 entry game mode. There are rules around this, and you can check them all out if you click the link in the description or scan the QR code and head over to Spitch, where there's already a great community of fantasy football hub managers. Bakar, we're going to have a look at your team, and then we're going to have a look at your plans for the upcoming week, and I'll maybe just give you a rough idea of what my thinking is. So last week you scored 69 points. That has you at 629k. Just looking at that team, and then you can break into it. Obviously, you were hit with the triple Liverpool blank like I was. You've Neto and Andreas there, maybe letting you down a bit. Jesus was brilliant, but sure, everyone has him, so it's not exactly like you've gained much rank there. Cancelo, a great performance. James with a lovely goal. Martinelli again showing up.
Yeah.
What are your main concerns, I suppose, going into next week?
I mean, as you say, it's just that the most of the obvious picks have been doing well. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you obviously want a little more to separate you from the rest of the crowd. At this point, I don't think I have that in my team right now, because my team is very template-ish. You're talking about my potential issues that I see in the squad. I think with Perisic coming on against Chelsea and putting in a very reasonable show, he's expected to start, and that solves a lot of issues that I have and gives me a much needed differential that I'm looking for in the weeks to come. This week I will definitely wait for early team news before the deadline in case Perisic is starting. then that would solve a lot of my headaches. And in that case, I would probably downgrade Bailey to a 4.5 million just to free up cash. I mean, there's Harrison Reed from Fulham, there's Lavia from Southampton, or even Andre Gomez, who could fall to 4.4. So, I mean, if he does, that would give me an additional 0.1 million as well. So I would downgrade Bailey, long story short, in case Perisic is starting. If Perisic is not starting, then I would sell Perisic, because I simply cannot take another plank for him anymore. And I would probably buy a City defender, probably Walker.
Why are you going Walker over Cucurella?
Yeah, there's Cucurella as well. I mean, either of the two. I mean, in my initial analysis, I assumed that a lot of people would have double City defense. I don't, right? So, I mean, I could go Walker, I could go Cucurella. It's going to be one of the two, but I don't see Perisic not starting. So I haven't really given this much thought, because, I've scarred heavily through the Spurs fans forum, and Perisic is literally in every single starting 11 they predict. So, in case Perisic is not starting, then I will have a look at the pre-match press conferences, see what quotes Tuchel has on Cucurella, and if he's looking positive, then I might prefer Cucurella over Walker.
Very good. Well, if we have a look at your team going into the next game week on the My Team tool on Fantasy Football Hub, your team as it stands with Perisic and Bailey in it would have a game week rating of 87%, team rating of 93, predicted points at 61.6. Now, you're speaking of getting rid of Bailey potentially. So let's say you get rid of them both, okay? So we remove Bailey and you bring in, say, one of the 4.5s you'd mentioned.
Yep. Probably Reed.
Who would you go for? Reed, okay. So Reed comes in. And then let's say you also get rid of Perisic and you bring in, I suppose, do you want Walker or do you want
just to clarify? No, just to clarify, John, over here. Just to clarify, in either scenario, my plan is to roll the other free transfer.
Oh, right? Okay.
Cool. Yeah. I won't be making two. I mean, unless in case of injuries, I won't. My plan is not to make use of both my free transfer. My plan is to use one and roll the other. So if Perisic is starting, then the defender will come in for Perisic, and if Perisic isn't starting, then the midfielder will come in for Bailey.
So based on that, with that setup, you would be looking at an 88% game week rating, 62.3 predicted points. And if it goes the other way and you get rid of Perisic, you would have Cucurella in there and an 89% rating and 62.9 predicted points. So that's interesting looking ahead to next week. So Bakar, your captaincy, right? Mohamed Salah, you reckon it's going to be on Salah this week up against United? I know United lost 4-0 to Brentford, which says a lot. But for me, it's kind of Gabriel Jesus against Bournemouth. That's where my head's leaning. Talk to me about captaincy this week.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. It's not as clear cut as we have had in the first 2 weeks. I am on Salah, and I think I'm likely to stick with Salah. I mean, there are a lot of people who've learned the hard way of to captain Salah against Man United. I mean, in the previous season, there were plenty of people who went against Salah in Gameweek 8, I think it was, when a lot of people went with Havertz captain, and they were forced to sort of bear the brunt of Salah scoring. I don't even remember how many goals against Man United. Probably was a hat-trick. But when you look at his record against United, it's fantastic. He's had like 7 goals in the previous 5 appearances. Liverpool in their previous 3 appearances have 11 goals, and Salah is just the talisman. I just don't think I will look past him. Jesus is a good option. I expect him to score against Bournemouth, but I just think that Salah's ceiling is greater, especially when you factor in, the qualitative factors. For example, United have a protest, planned at the stadium. Now, how that is going to impact the players? 1 goal goes in, the fans might get on their back, and it could get worse, right? And I just get the feeling that United will look to attack Liverpool, and in that case, that is simply going to play on into Salah's hands on the counter, and I think he can go ballistic this week. I just think his ceiling is bigger than Jesus.
Well, the My Team tool agrees with you. 6.9 predicted points for Salah, 5.4 for Jesus, 6 points predicted for Haaland. So the algorithm, AI, is saying Captain Salah. I don't know. I'll have to see. That's a call I'll make closer to the deadline.
Don't worry.
If anyone
I'll
wants
convince
to give
you before the deadline.
You convinced me of everything, Bakar. So if anyone wants to give My Team a crack, click the link in the description. Head over to Fantasy Football Hub. You don't need to sign up to give it a go. But if you do sign up, you'll get 50% off, and you'll be able to look ahead at future game weeks. And I'll tell you this much, Bakar, your team looks banging for game week 4 whenever we get to that stage. But that's something we can talk about next week. In terms of what I'm thinking of doing, I have Jack Grealish. He's my biggest issue, I think. Jack Grealish and Bailey are two guys who I'm not loving having on this team. The rest of the team I love. Of Andreas and Nico Williams, Ward as well as 3 bench options that I like. Archer's there because Archer's there. The rest of the guys in the team, I really like. It's just Bailey and Grealish. So it's about how do I move them on and move them on effectively and try and get something in. So what would be your advice, Bakar?
I would swap Bailey to a 4.5 million mid. I mean, in your case, actually, you have Neko as the 5th. So you can upgrade Neko by downgrading Grealish, and you can just simply have Bailey on the bench. That's actually what I would do.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe it isn't just about panic stations, get rid of Bailey, burn the 2 transfers, maybe just a bit more of a patient game. Play the guy who play Andreas or Nico.
Yeah, because I just don't think Grealish is a playable option at this point. I mean, it's far too big of a headache to have week in, week out. And even when he plays, I don't think he's that good a FPL option in terms of output. So I would sell Grealish. I would look at upgrading your 5th defender. There are plenty of defenders to like at this point. So that's what I would do.
Brilliant. Well, Bakar, it's been a pleasure. People can find you on Twitter. They can find me on Twitter. And we'll see you again next week.
Pleasure.